you go against who that nation, you got to bring your hard hat.
What's good, people? It's your boy Merv back for season 3 of the Black and Gold Hour podcast. And I got my boy here, Mike Balco. He's back. Y'all know him. He's a regular on the show. And we're here to talk Saints football. Now, Saturday was the first time we seen Saints football this last season. And it was good to see the Saints on the field. There were some highs and some lows and some things that we really want to talk about today. And I'm glad that you guys are here. I want to thank my boy Be Kind for checking into the show early with the comment. I really appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe, and we're just going to keep building up the family. But let's get into it, Mike, man. How you doing today, bro?
Blessed and highly favored, as always. You know the drill.
Man, I love it always. Mike, man, I got to tap in with you. The first preseason game is in the books, man. Going back to last Saturday. It's a lot to talk about that happened this week, but let's just recap last Saturday. What are some of your thoughts as you watched the game?
Yeah, the starters looked incredible. So, we don't really have too much that we have to worry about there. Even though we didn't get to see Jameis out there, we didn't get to see other guys who were starters, obviously. The guys who did play that had been running with the ones looked incredible. First team offense, first team defense, nothing to worry about. Paulson Adebo, he's our show favorite here. We talk about him almost every show, I feel like. He's making incredible strides. We saw him read a coverage extremely well and make a nice tackle for a loss. So that was exciting to see. One thing I really want to see from him this upcoming season in year 2 is a little bit more physicality and, a lot more of like stuff Marshawn Lattimore does. It's like completely taking a receiver out of the game. And we saw him do that early in the preseason game. And then the last thing that I noticed that I just really enjoyed from the game was that the play calling flow with the ones seemed to be very fluent. So Pete Carmichael's doing a good job with the offense. Defensive coordinator's doing a good job with the defense. Dennis Allen overall seems to have a pretty good grasp on, good personnel matchups, things of that nature. And the early going. Obviously, the rest of the preseason will surely tell us more. And obviously, when we get to the regular season, that will be the deciding factor as to whether or not Dennis Allen's got it under control or not. But all the early indications is that looking solid.
Right, man. And you couldn't ask for a better drive, a better looking defense. Paulson Adebo was getting in the backfield, making plays, man. He's going to be a star. He's definitely going to be a star, even at the linebacker position. The question that we kind of had going into the first preseason game, our linebackers looked pretty good. Everything looked good as far as the first team offense and then, the defense. And now going back to the offense, Andy Dalton was able to get it done. He made it look easy, too. Dwayne Washington on the screen, he ran that screen pretty smooth, kind of a little Pierre Thomas-esque, man. But I got to ask you, man, there's a couple players personally for me that stood out, like Paulson Adebo, Dwayne Washington. We did see a little bit of Chris Olave as well and Andy Dalton, but I got to talk about some players that stood out for you.
Yeah, so you mentioned one of them, Andy Dalton. He was lights out. And it's crazy because ever since that game, he has struggled in practice, it seems like. But he is going against one of the best defenses in the NFL and practice this week against the Packers. They have a joint practice going on, but Andy Dalton was my number one player that stood out. 5 for 5, 51 yards, a touchdown. I think he had like a 168.8 passer rating. I was like perfect almost. Both running backs, Dwayne Washington and Tony Jones Jr., they are just neck and neck for that RB3 spot right now. That's super exciting to see. If I had to pick one of the two, I think Dwayne Washington sticks around just because of what we've seen him do on special teams over the years. And he just continues to find a way onto this roster. So I think if I have to pick between one of those two guys to win that RB3 job, it's going to be Dwayne Washington. My favorite player of the game and a guy who I loved whenever we signed him as an undrafted free agent a couple years ago was Chase Hansen. Man, it was nice to see him go out there and just do his thing. 6 tackles, 2 TFLs, an interception. looked like he had control of the defense. He was a starting linebacker, which indicates a lot. I mean, he started over. I'm not sure if Caden Ellis was a healthy scratch or if Ellis played later. I think Ellis actually played later. I think Ellis got the sack later. But Hansen started over Caden Ellis. That's his biggest competition there. And yeah, starting in the preseason is an early indication that you have a pretty dang good shot at earning a roster spot. And Chase Hansen is just one of those guys that was a free agent. The Saints brought him back. Mind you, a defensive head coach now, not Sean Payton. Dennis Allen wanted this dude. And, he's competing against Eric Wilson, who's an NFL veteran linebacker who also had a great game. And he's trying to just get in the mix with DeMario and Pete Werner and guys like that. And I think he definitely put his name in the mix for sure. And then one last guy that really stood out to me was also on the defensive side, and that was safety Justin Evans. I felt like he had a very, very good grasp of the secondary. He's obviously still a long shot to make the roster. Unfortunately, I'm a huge Justin Evans guy. I love him. I loved him when he was with Tampa Bay. Hate to say that, obviously. But I would love nothing more than to see him have like a revival tour, kind of like Jameis Winston, two former Bucks just balling out in the boot, trying to bring home a title and just rub it in Tom Brady and Tampa Bay's face. So I think Justin Evans has a good shot at still making this roster if he continues to ball out like he did. We saw his interception, but it's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that nobody else really noticed or paid attention to that I think Justin Evans really thrived in.
Right, man. And Justin Evans with the interception late in the middle of the game, and I was kind of like, athletic. That's Sports Center top 10 right there, man. He definitely stretched out for that one, and you could just see his hunger on the field. So hopefully your guy Justin Evans comes on. Now let me ask you about someone that's very popular in Who Dat Nation right now for good reasons and so reasons as well. Trevor Penning, man. He was Pro Football Focus's #1 rated first-year offensive lineman, man. And he was killing it in the run game. But, how did you feel about his overall performance, bro?
Yeah, he's actually the #1 first-round rookie altogether that played in week 1 of the preseason. Not even just offensive lineman, but rookie. Yeah, that is crazy. I think there was a reason he wasn't on my players who stood out list. And that's because he really only stood out in half of the game. He thrived in the run game, which is a good area for him to thrive in. But we need him as a first-round pick to be able to do everything that the Saints need him to do. So he ended up on my room for growth list instead of my players who stood out list, unfortunately, for this week. Maybe if he wasn't getting kicked out of practice for fighting all the time, he would have learned a little bit more of how to pass block. It is still very early, obviously. I love the upside of Penning, though. I'll buy my Penning stock all day long. Nothing against him personally. I love the aggression that he shows. I think it's important to have passion on the field. I think it's important to be an offensive lineman, similar to like a Taylor Lewan, who's just not going to deal with your nonsense and is just going to go out there and smack you in the mouth if you don't like it. And just like my boy JT says right here, offensive line got to protect Jameis for us to be in the playoffs. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. So he needs to stay in practice. He needs to keep himself healthy because right now he's not. He left practice early yesterday, I believe. Some sort of injury. So did James Hurst. So he's got to be out there and he's got to be working with the fellow potential starting offensive linemen so that we can get him out there. But, it is exciting that Penning was viewed so highly from PFF. However, I don't think Saints fans viewed him that highly. So we're picky, man. We need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, man. That left tackle spot, very most important position, I think. On the line, man. That's the quarterback's backside, man. And it's going to be a lot of trouble if he is not able to protect Jameis. I mean, there were some plays where it wasn't looking too good. It wasn't looking too good. He got sauced up a little bit, but it's okay because he's still a rookie and there's still room for growth. And one player that is actually going into his 5th year is a player that I've talked about numerous times here on the Black and Gold Hour. Personally, for me, I know he does the dirty work. I know he does what other receivers aren't willing to do and do it well. But for me, I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back this last game and this last drop. especially looking at the wide receiver group and knowing that the competition is high this year in the group. And he still was not making plays when he needed to make them, was Traquan Smith, man. Traquan Smith is a great blocker. He's made some big plays in Who Dat Nation, bro. But I got to be honest with you. I know he's going to make the roster. I feel like he is going to make the roster. But at the same time, I think we've seen enough, man. And I got to ask you, what's your opinion on the fifth-year player, Traquan Smith?
So I told you how I was buying my Trevor Penning stocks. I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm selling every bit of my Traquan Smith stocks that I have, and I have zero. So, yeah. Traquan Smith, he reminds me of Brandon Coleman. I know you remember Brandon Coleman, except I think Brandon Coleman was a little bit more athletic, and that was the thing I loved about Brandon Coleman. When Coleman played for us, he was one of my favorite players because he could block and he could catch the ball. Now, we're having an issue because Traquan Smith can block, but like he can't do literally the thing that is in his position title, which is receive. Clearly, I mean, we're talking about a dot from Ian Book right in his arms, man. Drop in the end zone, perfect. No one even on him. He just dropped it. And while one drop isn't everything, we've seen this too many times from Mr. Traquan Smith, man. It just cannot happen at this point. You know the system. You can't say you don't. You've worked with Ian Book. Can't say that you haven't. You know what I mean? You've worked with Jameis. You can't say that you haven't. So you just need to get out there. You need to just show us what you can do, man, because it's irritating at this point. I think I disagree with you, man. I think he has a good shot at getting cut this year. I think just the early indications, though, just from Dennis Allen, like he's all gas, no brakes, man. And he's proven that already. And, I feel like Dennis Allen low-key been sitting in the offices and just like, man, I've been waiting to cut this dude for years, man. Yeah. And now he's got the opportunity to do it. I think they brought him back, on a 1-year cheap deal just to see, earn his roster spot. But, like I was talking about with Chase Hansen, paying attention to guys who substitute in after the ones is extremely important because Traquan Smith wasn't out there with the ones. Traquan Smith was out there after guys like Kirk Merritt was. Kirk Merritt was the first receiver out there following those initial guys like Olave and whatnot. So Kirk Merritt was like the go-to guy for Ian Book. Dejon Dixon is a guy who just Saints fans and Saints coaches are just thriving over right now. They love him. So I think he's got a good shot to make the roster. And then Kawan Baker. Those are 3 guys right there that I feel are a better option than Traquan's no hands block or Smith. So that's all he does, man. All he does is block and drop passes, and then he catches the passes that he has no business catching, and then you're like, oh, okay, this dude ain't so bad. But to what point is it too much? Because if you think about it right off the rip, you're talking about 5 receivers I can think of right now off the top of my head that are going to make the roster, no questions asked. I mean, we're talking about Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry. That's 3 right there. And then you got Deontay Hardy, you know what I mean? Because he's our kick and punt returner as well. Right. And then you got Marquez Callaway. You can't tell me Callaway is not better than Traquan Smith. So then you're looking at Traquan Smith with that 6 territory when you could pay someone cheaper with more potential upside and a Kirk Merritt or a Dejon Dixon, like I was mentioning. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of what you have to consider here. And I don't think they keep Traquan Smith as a number 6. I think he would refuse to be a number 6, get literally 0 snaps all season, be maybe a come in and block every now and then kind of guy. But yeah, man, I mean, if we keep him, it is still good depth for us. It's depth that knows what he's supposed to be doing. It's just depth that doesn't do what he's supposed to be doing.
Exactly, bro. You're right. And with Traquan Smith, Sean Payton, as Sean Payton typically does in the past with his favorite players, he's given him chance after chance. People like myself were done after year 3. People now, it seems like Who Dat Nation is finally coming together in one accord, which rarely happens. And we're agreeing that, look, Traquan Smith, his time is done. Hands is too soft, man. It's too soft. You got to have strong hands. That was a perfect play by Ian, who otherwise had a rough night. And look, I mean, Ian Book's still developing, but that was a Great throw on him. That was the play, was a perfect call. Tre'Quan Smith knew it too. He laid on the ground for a little bit, and I just sat at my TV and just was like, he's got to go. He's got to go at this point. Those are just one of the loose strings that I think Sean Payton left, and I think Dennis Allen is going to do what he needs to do, like you said, and he might potentially cut him. Who knows? But Merrick, I like Merrick. I even like Kawan Baker. I liked him and his route running, his speed, his decisive decision making, his strong hands. That was a player that I really liked for the New Orleans Saints, Kawan Baker. And I think he did get cut, did he not? So
no, that was Aesop Winston.
Aesop Winston. So Kawan Baker, if he doesn't make the team, hopefully he'll come back like he did last year on the practice squad, because that's a guy that I definitely want to see continue to develop. But man, we got to talk about Ian Book. I got a couple of people. We got a few people in the comments right now. Let's talk Ian Book. How did you feel about his performance on Saturday night?
I think you just kind of touched on it, man. It was a very disappointing night overall. I hate to say this twice in a row. I feel this is a negative episode, man, but I think he's got a shot at getting cut too. There's a reason they brought in KJ Costello, man, and it's not because of Jameis Winston's injury. I'll tell you that much. I mean, they brought in KJ Costello because they don't know what they're doing at the QB3 spot right now. And while KJ Costello didn't play in the preseason game, I think there's a good shot that we do see him play this upcoming week. We saw KJ Costello dominate the USFL a few months ago, and now he's out here competing for a number 3 quarterback spot with Ian Book. I'm an Ian Book believer, man. I like Ian Book. I do. I mean, I just love the idea of, another young guy who's disappointing. The Book of Ian is not a good read. That is facts right there. But I just love the idea of a young kid who's underperformed so far with a birthmark on his face, coming to New Orleans to save the city and take us to another Super Bowl. But let's be realistic here. We saw zero improvement from 2021. If anything, I feel like he got worse. First of all, why do you even decide to throw a ball to Tre'Quan Smith in the end zone? That's just, you got to know better than that. I'm just playing. I feel like he just had no overall control of the offense at all. I feel like he was just. It reminds me of when Taysom Hill would play quarterback, and at random times where they would pull Drew Brees out of the game and put Taysom Hill in, and you're just kind of holding your breath like, oh my God, what is he about to do right now? That's how I feel every single time Ian Book is under center. I got really bad anxiety, man. I'm just like, come on, man, just do something somewhat decent with it. I mean, you should have seen me last year when this man was forced to play. I was a hot mess. Yeah, but overall, I haven't seen any improvement from Ian Book. You would feel like, you would see some sort of improvement, but literally none. I mean, Andy Dalton very much outperformed him. Ian Book has no shot at the QB2 spot. And I mean, just considering the offensive drop-off that we saw as soon as Andy Dalton left the game, it was just atrocious. I mean, the rest of the game was, we're talking about not a good team. Even if Ian Book had to play against the starters of the Houston Texans, there is no reason why he shouldn't be able to move the ball. We're talking about him playing against the backups of the Houston Texans, and he still can't move the ball. That's a problem.
Right. And let's see, Doctor. You wrong. Smith started and caught a pass from the first drive. He did catch a pass in the first drive in the middle of the field. But that drop in the end zone, that's the Tre'Quan Smith we've been seeing. And in this league, in this NFC, you got to make plays, man. There's too many other talented receivers at this point. Tre'Quan Smith did catch a pass in the first quarter. I do remember that pass across the middle, kind of sat in the zone. That was a nice catch, but it just seems like it's so inconsistent. We have so much talent. We need consistent players. They're at least going to make plays, especially in this competitive wide receiver group. So I definitely get what you're saying. He did catch a pass, but then he dropped it. And it just seems like do you remember the game that Tre'Quan Smith had against the Eagles when he had over 100 yards, and then we didn't see him for 2 or 3 weeks? It's one of those things with Ian Book with Tre'Quan Smith, where we have to see consistent play, and we just haven't seen it as he's going into his 5th year. but he still has room for growth. He still got a couple more weeks. We'll see what Dennis Allen does. We'll see what happens, man. But hey, man, let's talk about the news broken by my guy. I've been reading a couple articles about Alvin Kamara, and I've been seeing someone else mentioned in these articles. His name is Michael Balco. And we got to talk about it, man. Alvin Kamara, we know what happened last year over the summer. So we got to kind of talk about it and talk about how his suspension or whatever the commissioner is going to decide won't happen until likely 2023, man. Tell me more about that news.
Yeah. I broke it on your show last week first. I had to get you with that inside scoop. But as soon as our show ended, I threw it on Twitter. We saw how that happened. But yeah, I caught wind that Alvin Kamara's suspension. Right now everyone's in fantasy playoff mode, so they're trying to get all the latest insight. And that a suspension for him isn't probably going to happen until next year. Just because his court dates keep continuously getting pushed back. And so I was just asking around. I'm like, yo, is this actually happening this year? Like, Who Dat Nation needs some answers. Like, let me get it for him. So I threw that out there. It did well, thankfully. Schefter, nothing's ever official till Schefter tweets it out for some reason. Right. But your boy was there first. But it's all good. But that's kind of what we're looking like. So it looks like we're going to have Kamara for the whole season, which makes that RB3 spot even more valuable and more difficult up for grabs, because we're going to have to really figure out who deserves to be RB3, because I don't think we keep 4 RBs on the roster. And Abram Smith, he's got to enter himself into that mix somehow, man, because I like Abram Smith. we got to see him do something, man. But yeah, just overall, it's exciting because we'll have Kamara, we'll have Boom and Zoom, should be for the whole year, and we're just going to be at our best. We're going to be able to play our best football. We're going to be able to just bring that ring home real quick.
You right, bro. The team is looking good, though. We can't really be too upset. If Tre'Quan Smith is the only thing Who Dat Nation is talking about this week, and Ian Book, then we're doing okay. We're doing okay, because those aren't even those aren't people that will be getting much playing time this year at all.
Ideally, they don't see the field, right?
That's what we hope. But at this point, you know what I'm saying? The Saints defense looking good out there in Green Bay. We seen them making some plays. We also see Green Bay's defense making plays as well. So we definitely want to see some consistency with the offense. See what Jameis does, but I know he's not playing this preseason game. I was really looking forward to that. But we know what Jameis can do, and hopefully he gets rested up in time for the first game of the season. And, everything, continues to progress and get better, and we'll get a better idea how that RB3 position looks, and even the linebacker position as well. But I want to thank you guys for watching today's show. I want to thank my boy Mike for coming on. Appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir.
Man, and y'all know it's time for the Merv Speak segment, where I leave y'all with something to think about, man. Our mind is a powerful engine. It can help us achieve massive success. It can help us get to new goals. It can help us get to new heights. It can help us be ambitious. But at the same time, your mind can also be one of your worst enemies. For example, I'm dedicated to going to the gym every other day. Just started this, just going to the gym, doing better. And sometimes my mind will wake me up and be like, man, I'm tired. Man, you didn't even, drink all your water today, man. Maybe you don't need to go today, man. But every time I end up pushing through and going, man, I have some of the best workouts of all time, man. So anything that you're doing, sometimes your mind is going to play tricks on you. It's your duty just to push through it. Keep going. Do your best, man, and you'll see the results. You'll see the results of all your hard work. I'm continuing to try to push out more episodes and do what I need to do despite being in school, despite working. I'm going to try to give y'all as much Black and Gold hour as possible. I really appreciate you guys for checking in. It's been up. It's been a great morning with you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching the show. Thank you guys for listening. Thank my guy Mike for coming on. We out.